thing that really took me to the next level when I just turned 21. So this is 3.5 years ago. And I was selling some deals off to a guy in our market named Taro, who's like runs big events. He just ran an event with Kiyosaki and Kim McElroy in Arizona with like 1,400 people. And he called me and he goes, "Hey, I need you to send me 10 grand. And I was like, "For what?" He's like, "Well, Brandon Turner's throwing his mastermind in Hawaii, his first one ever. And I want you to come." And I was like, "Dude, at that time, 10 grand just for an event. That was before flights, before hotels, before food. That was a $20,000 trip." And I didn't have a ton of money. I mean, for the first couple of years of my business, I was paying myself very minimally, trying to get it off the ground. I spent 50% of my net worth probably on that trip. And that I probably made on my $20,000 investment, 100x return by the people I met and the concepts you learn by being around people who are at just a whole nother ballgame than you.
Cole, we got you on here, man, from SoCal in San Diego. How are you doing today, man?
Doing good, fellas. Doing good. Thanks for having me on. Look forward to it.
Dude, so Cole, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I got into this is a real estate podcast. So I got into real estate when I was 18. I went down to play basketball in college at a school in LA, and I'd gone down there. I'd done Running Start in high school, which for you guys listening, Running Start's essentially, they don't have it in every state, but it's where you take your junior and senior year of high school when you do classes on a college campus. You get a bunch of credits. So I went into college with 2 years done. Didn't have to live in a dorm, got to skip all that, lived with a buddy. And I was there in business class, and I was like, man, this is just, I love playing basketball, but I can't sit here any longer. I had that entrepreneurial itch. I wanted to go try it. And so I thought I made myself a deal. I said, since I already have 2 years done of college, I'm going to give myself 2 years to try to figure this thing out. And if I can't figure it out in 2 years, then A, I'm going to go back to school and still be in the same grade as my peers, or B, it's going to work out and I'm going to keep rolling with from there. So my first step was getting licensed. So that summer after my first year down there, I got licensed, state of Washington as a realtor, and I hated being a realtor. I was probably the worst realtor of all time. Sitting open houses and showing houses and all the shit that goes with that. It was just not fun. I hated it. Wasn't good at it. Didn't really put an effort in it. But I bounced around to 3, 4, 5 brokerages. And finally, like the 5th brokerage, they had another arm of their company where they were doing auctions. So they were bringing in investors every single midweek. I think it was like Wednesday night. Every single Wednesday night, they'd bring in like 100 investors into their office, and I'd sit in on these meetings, and they'd kind of pre-sell them auction properties for the week, and they'd build in their fee. So they'd kind of know what's coming to auction that week, and they'd have them bid on it beforehand and take checks for their buyers to the auction and make their $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 fees. And I was like, that's an interesting concept. A lot of these guys are just sitting behind their computer, and that's kind of my skill set. I'm a systems marketing behind the scenes guy. I'm not on the phones. I do quite a bit of social media and events and stuff, but for the most part, I'm pretty introverted. And so I love that. And the next day, I was at Applebee's eating a 2 for $20 with a buddy, and we were sitting at dinner, and something on my Instagram pops up. It was this guy, local guy who's young, 2 years older than me. I was 19, he was 21. Pops up, it's 40. He was on his Instagram like, look at this $40,000 wholesale assignment fee, blah blah. And I'm like, well, if that guy can do it, I can probably figure it out. So
what year was this, Cole?
Let's see, I'm 24 now, so that was about 5 years ago. That was probably 2017.
Gotcha.
End of 2017, the winter, right? But like October to November, December. And so we got after it right away. The next day, I was living at home at the time. My parents had this kind of attic room. So me and my buddy Paul, who was my old business partner, we sat up there and dialed the phone ourselves off a Google sheet, highlighting leads green who were interested, red who were not, yellow who were maybe. And we grinded in there until we got our first deal. It took a couple months, and that first deal was $105,000. That was my, okay, I'm not going back to school moment. And from there, obviously you go through the normal entrepreneurial struggle of, okay, how do I make this consistent, and how do I, systematize this? And from there, all the struggles and fun began. But that was my intro, kind of my path and to learn about the off-market game, and really a big part of where I am right now.
So where'd you learn? So you said you saw someone that's 21. Is that person still in business?
I'm not sure. I don't talk to them too much. I'm sure they're still doing deals in Washington here and there.
Gotcha.
I didn't learn from them. I just saw them post a check. And then from there, I YouTubed a lot. Yeah. I mean, I had some real estate background. I was licensed, so I understood the terminology. Yeah. So I bought some courses. I went to an event or two and learned about cold calling, hired a virtual assistant in the Philippines to cold call like everyone else does with roosters in the background. And slowly just stacked a deal upon a deal and kept paying for more mentorship and coaching. And then I would say it took us year and a half to get real traction, which I consider, consistent deal flow every month to month. But yeah, that was how I got started. The same old place everyone else does: YouTube University, podcasts, and going to events. yeah, I mean, it's
So,
kind of a
so that's 2017. So can you give us a little bit of what you're doing now as a whole, just so everyone can kind of understand where you've gone in such a quick
absolutely.
time?
So in 2017, I started a business and ran that for about 2 years with a partner. We split in 2019. So 2019 to now, our top sales guy, who's now became my partner. So he runs our whole sales team. So now we're running an off-market real estate shop in Washington. We normally will do 8 to 12 deals a month. So we land right around 170, 200 deals a year in Washington. And that's a mix of flipping and wholesaling, but primarily wholesaling. And so we're on pace to do about 2.5 this year in revenue just on the wholesale side alone. Then flip on top of that, some other stuff we do as well. But that's our thing. We have virtual and in-house in that business. We have about 42 now employees across, virtual assistants combined with in-house people. And I do some other stuff as well. I own a call center with about 110 employees now. I'm a quarter owner of that out of Egypt.
Nice.
Kind of my two main things.
What's the
So
name of
what's
the
your
call center?
wholesale to flip ratio?
I mean, we only flip super easy stuff. So if
Gotcha.
Washington's brutal on permitting and everything. So if we can be
Yeah.
in and out in 3 months, we'll flip it if it's
Is it
super easy.
Spokane?
No, this is more west. We do a lot of wholesaling in Spokane, but this is more west side stuff. So we're in the main Seattle 3 counties, which is Snohomish, Pierce, King, where we're touching stuff. Yeah. Otherwise, we
Nice.
just honestly hate flipping.
Yeah.
I like wholesaling. There's no risk and it's super scalable. And every time I call one of my buddies, it's a volume flipper. They seem to hate their life.
Yeah.
That's a fact. They're always stressed out
Yeah.
every time I talk to them.
Realtors and flippers always stressed out. The only people I ever meet that are really happy with their business and real estate are people who run like at scale wholesale operations where they truly have a team and infrastructure. And that's fun to me. I like the team building side more than I like in terms of internal team rather than going finding contractors and doing that whole dance. That's not very enticing to me.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
agree with you for sure.
I like that. So you said you got a call center. You said you run some events and stuff too. I think. Do you have like an education side or stuff something over there?
Yeah. So that kind of came about just guys in my market. Like I never wanted to be an educator. It didn't interest me. All the people I'd met that were in the education space had kind of done it because that they needed a revenue stream because their business wasn't producing revenue. So they understood the concepts and they could share the concepts with people. So I never wanted to do that. That kind of came about. A couple guys in my market kind of came to us, said, "Hey, we want to learn what you guys do." So we threw out a number like, pay us this and we'll show you. Come to our office. And then from there, I found out I loved it. So I love working with newer wholesalers and investors on that. So yeah, we do quite a bit. We do an in-person event every quarter or two. Probably skip one now because those events are very time consuming, but we like to do in-person events, just 20 to 40 people. We can get them in we do them at houses. So the last one was at a house, the movie theater. So we got everyone in the theater for 3 days and just jam-packed it full of info. And then, the call center. So the call center I started 3 years ago, and then I've been adding on partners to scale it. And yeah, now we have clients just about in every state. We work with a lot of hedge funds, with a lot of bigger clients who are 200, 300, 400 caller clients that are doing it at scale. So, and it helps too, because you can kind of see, I think we all get so stuck in our own world, the amount of clients we work with on that business, you can see how big this game can be taken. I mean, there's guys that are truly employing 400 cold callers for just their business. And all they're doing is off-market real estate. So that's been a cool kind of perspective shift to see where you can take this stuff. That's what I think the coolest thing about wholesaling is the barrier of entry is pretty low, but the ceiling's also like, it's insane. And most businesses, it's harder to break into. This business, you can really, I mean, I've seen it time and time again in our coaching group. I'm sure you guys have too as well, where someone comes their first month, they make a few cold calls, they get a $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 check. It's an insane business.
Sick, yeah. It's awesome. Yeah. I mean, that you got a 105K deal for your first deal. That's nuts. That's insane.
Yeah. I thought I was retired at that point. You're an 18, 105 grand. And, we had some stuff come off the top of that, paying people out. But yeah, I thought I figured it out.
You landed on the moon, man.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So I think one thing you mentioned right there is like you bought a bunch of education. Do you feel like that was like one of the big things that kind of like propelled you up pretty quick? Because obviously you've had a lot of success super fast at a young age.
Yeah, I think there's the quickest way. I mean, ultimately, I think if you have the skill set and you have the determination, you're going to get to the same point in this business, whether you figure it out on your own or you pay someone. It's just about skipping steps quicker. So that's what education has always been for me. Like a lot of people get to a certain point in their business too, and they'll say, "Hey, I do more revenue than that person. I'm not going to pay that person for education." But I mean, the way I look at it, we spend as much as we can on education. Even if a company's smaller than us, because usually what got company A to $1 million, $2 million, $3 million in revenue is something different that they're good at than what we're good at. So like what got us to over 2 million in revenue is we just built a call center. We're really, really good at cold calling and running that funnel. So the more people we go and see, usually cold calling is not the thing that got them to $2 million business. Usually they're really, really good at sales training, which we are too now. They're really, really good at pay-per-click. They're really, really, there's some other aspect of their business that's gotten them to that point. So, I mean, we maximize education all we can. I did when I first got started, and we still do. We fly all over the country and meet people who are doing less, similar, and more revenue than us to just, meet more people, get more ideas, because a business is truly only as good as the ideas within it. So, and that usually caps out over and over again. So the more eyeballs I can get, even in other industries, it's really cool to go get other industries' perspectives on our business. And yeah, it's been the number one thing that's taken us to another level.
Yeah, I like that. I like the idea of like going just to, I think if you're familiar with Hermosi, I'm sure you probably watched some of his stuff on YouTube. He's like talks about, he's like paid this guy. Yeah, if you haven't, like, come on. But he paid this guy, like, just to learn how to do ads or whatever. He's like, I just want one-on-one training. He's like, this dude does less than me or whatever, but I just want to master it. I don't know. I think that's pretty smart.
The thing that really took me to the next level when I just turned 21. This is 3.5 years ago. And I was selling some deals off to a guy in our market named Taro, who's like runs big events. He just ran an event with Kiyosaki and Kim McElroy in Arizona with like 1,400 people. But he's a Washington-based guy. And I got to know him pretty well, became friends, and he calls me one day, and I didn't have a ton of money. I mean, for the first couple of years of my business, I was paying myself very minimally, trying to get it off the ground. And he called me, he goes, hey, I need you to send me 10 grand. And I was like, for what? He's like, well, Brandon Turner's throwing this mastermind in Hawaii, his first one ever, and I want you to come. And they were co-hosting it. And I was like, dude, at that time, 10 grand just for an event. That was before flights, before hotels, before food. That was a $20,000 trip. I probably had $40,000 in my name. And sold some Bitcoin probably at the time. I don't remember. Got the money, and I went, and I spent 50% of my net worth probably on that trip, and that I probably made on my $20,000 investment 100x return by the people I met and the concepts you learn by being around people who are at just a whole nother ball game than you. So that's what I tell people. They come to me and they're like, "Oh, your $200 a month program is so expensive, or your this is so expensive." I'm like, you guys got to think like I told them that story. Like I truly put half of all the money I had. That wasn't even a wholesaling focused event. That was just to get around ideas and
those
thoughts.
People. Yeah.
And how
Pineda was there, right? Who else was there?
Yeah, I met Pineda there. Yeah, before he was Pineda, right? When he was just in that meeting. You do an activity called a Vivid Vision, which is our event. It's still my favorite activity. And you sit there, we all sit in a room, we find different spots for 30 minutes. You write out, you write 3 years, 5 or 10 years in the future, but you write it like it's current. And his was all about, my social media is this, I have this many followers, this many events, and everything's came through from that. Same for what I was, most people in that room. Brandon Turner now owns 680 million in assets for his open door capital fund. That didn't exist 3 years ago when we were doing those visions in Maui. So seeing that stuff, like that's the thing. That's the biggest way you scale this is conversation. That's why I think the podcast is so big, because you guys talk to people every week or however often you do it, and you get new ideas. So anyone that's listening, I would say, unless you're doing it, and you have a couple million in the bank and you've really starting to figure it out. Other than that, you need to be spending money on learning from other people.
Even then, like I guess it just depends on your goals too. It's like if your goal is $1 billion or 100 million, you only got $1 million in the bank, you're broke.
Yeah, it's facts.
But dude, so at that event, like you're with Brandon Turner, a bunch of other pretty, high players now. What were some of the things that were like that big like door that was opening for you, like the things with the dots connected?
I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, I think the number one way I looked at it is how I really started looking at my wholesaling company like a business. Because when you first get started, you do a couple of deals, you just get so caught up in the day-to-day of get a check, do more cold calling. You get so stuck in the business. And that's why most entrepreneurs never scale anything, because they get so stuck in the business. So it was really seeing how these guys thought about business. Like they looked at my company, right? Because we did a hot seat. Looked at my company and said, here's what this can be, right? There's a guy named Charles McKinney there who owns Certain Lending, and I had some dinners with him after that event. He was like, I think you realize this thing can be something where you take it and you get so good at property acquisition that you build a massive portfolio, and you sell it off to a Blackstone or a company like that. And there's guys that I've met since who have done that. So you just start thinking about what it can be, and these guys just think big and they operate quickly. So when they have an idea, they operate on it right away. And a lot of them fail, but the ones that go through, and that's why you see guys make progress so quickly. Obviously, as your team grows, it's easier to do that, but they have an idea. And the one thing I noticed about all those guys there that are worth tens of millions of dollars, when they have an idea, it's implemented right away. Like I was just in Cabo at another one of these things, and I was having breakfast with someone who has done very well for himself, older guy, and I threw him an idea. He's like, maybe I can implement that. He calls while we're at breakfast. He calls his accountant, says, "Hey, I want to do this." and hangs up the phone. Like so it's just that immediate action.
Yeah. Massive action quick.
Yeah. Just right away. And you just don't second guess it. And a lot of it shits the bed, but that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, I like that. Oh yeah, another thing too is like you brought up the fund idea. I think you mentioned that earlier. Like these big funds, they're 400 call centers and cold call. I was thinking about that the other day too. It's like, dude, that's like kind of the future, because like we're building the dispositions side out a lot more. Like we're adding on, several agents over there, or we have 2 right now, and we're looking at a 3rd one. Just kind of build that out as we slow down on the back end. But dude, there's so much capital raising opportunity on the back end with all these cash buyers, especially if they have their funds tied up and they don't want to put it in. Just thinking about, you could give them a pref and a fund and start buying a bunch of rentals. You know.
There's infinite ways to monetize the off-market real estate game, right? That's where I think people get in trouble too. Is there's so many little tracks to go down and golden objects to chase that it's like I've seen it so many times. Guys have a decent business, like, oh, I want to go do commercial, and they lose their main revenue stream. And they like our focus right now is to build this to before I even look at anything. I mean, of course, I want to build a massive portfolio. I want to do all that stuff. But like my main thing right now is how do we take HelloPad, which is our company, take it from 2.5 and 4x? How do we become a $10 million off-market company? Like what does that need to look like? So that's been all my brain power goes there right now. I have some other projects like the call center, but that's really like before I touch anything else is how does this become? And I think to your point, it's on the disposition side, because you can turn marketing up, you can hire more sales guys, but I think as the market shifts, there's going to be a lot of downward pressure on buyers. Hedge funds are going to freeze. A lot of the wholesalers like us that are new in the game within the last 8-10 years, we're hedge fund babies. A lot of us, right? We the hedge fund money,
free trust fund babies, even if we don't want to admit it.
Yeah, the hedge fund babies. But yeah, I mean, we don't honestly in Washington is not that hedge fund rich, but markets like where you guys are, like we have a lot of students in Atlanta and Florida and Texas and Arizona. And I tell them over and over again the same message: you guys got to beef up your dispo side and really become business operators and learn how to systemize and structure that. Because as the market shifts, downward pressure on buyers, your fees are going to compress. You're going to have to do more volume, and your hedge funds aren't going to be there to save the day every time. So it's already happening. A lot of hedge funds 2 days before closing are coming to people in our groups, people I've talked to, saying, "Hey, I need 10 grand off this deal. Oh, our buy box has changed X amount of percent in the last week." So,
I think we haven't signed a deal with a hedge fund probably since they froze. I mean, like 4 weeks.
Actually, we just sold one. I just signed it literally like right before this call with a hedge fund.
So one, but that's like one. We were doing like 80-90%. Now it's like 1 out of.
Yeah. I think everyone should take advantage of it when they're in a buying frenzy. I think they will continue to buy. It's just in these weird periods of no one knows where the market's going to land as they keep raising rates or where we're going to land rate wise. They kind of freeze up because they don't want to get caught with their pants down with a bunch of earnest money out. I know one builder in my market who's a big builder who walked away from like $1.5 million in earnest money in the last month. Tying up deals is risky because, if you're a good wholesaler, you're putting non-contingent funds somewhere in your deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like even just like one, like Tiber canceled 200 contracts. Even if they, put down $2,000 each, that's what, $400K, right? So the math.
Good shit. Yeah.
Yeah. That's better than the alternative.
Losing millions down the road. Yep. So yeah, that's what I think is the move, is beefing up dispo. Obviously you keep training sales guys, beef up marketing, but I mean, we're doubling down on our marketing internally right now. We have 35 cold callers running every day. That's just
your best source. Cold calling?
For sure. Yeah, we get a 5.5x return on cold calling every single quarter, like clockwork. Yeah.
Nice. What else do you do?
We do pay-per-click. So we cover the whole state of Washington pay-per-click. So we spend 10 to 15 grand a month on pay-per-click. We spend 15 grand a month on TV ads. In Washington, we do some mail, some very, very just targeted mail. I've never been a big mail guy. Very targeted probate, divorce, some stacked lists on mail. We do texting, but texting is kind of shit the bed for everyone. It's not a great thing to do right now, in my opinion. So those are our main ones: TV, pay-per-click, cold calling, and some very targeted mail. And then we're getting a lot of referral deals. We're starting to beef up our JV deal pipeline is getting pretty deep. Those are also great for us. But yeah, that's really our main.
I think there's a big opportunity on the JV side moving forward too. A lot of people, if you can, front the buyers list. A lot of people aren't going to be able to sell their deals anymore because they don't have the funds or whatever. So I think it's a pretty big opportunity moving forward.
Yeah, if you can really set yourself apart in terms of how you run deals, then like that's what we're doing. So we'll take a deal, our transactions team will run it, and like essentially as it would be an in-house deal, but for them, and we try to make that experience super enjoyable so people keep coming back because it's free revenue.
So you said just since we're mainly focused on wholesale here, what's like a high level? You said you guys dialed in the cold call process. Like, is there like something you feel like you guys do differently that makes y'all more successful than most people?
We treat it like a business. Most people who do cold calling, they look at it like a marketing, like just marketing, but cold calling is really a marketing channel that has to be treated like its own business, right? You need managers for those callers, you need daily huddles for those callers, you need daily role play for those callers, you need quality assurance for those callers. So that's how we have it built out. We just have a really good infrastructure in our call center, and I kind of have the benefit of owning a call center, so I have more say in how that goes down. But that's the biggest thing, is just making sure they're not sitting at home with roosters in their background in the Philippines, that they're really good English speakers level. Well, you hear a lot of level 10 English speakers, but really anything over like a level 6, no one will second guess if they're not in the States. I like Egypt. All of our callers are in Egypt. Our office is in Egypt. The Philippines doesn't convert it. We test it side by side right now. We have 10 callers Philippines, about 30 in Egypt, and we get about a 3.5x in the Philippines, about a 5.7x last quarter in Egypt. So substantially better in Egypt. And then it's just, it's every day training your cold callers like you would your sales guys, because they're the first touch for your company. It kind of sets the tone. So I think a lot of people just don't take it seriously, and that's what separates us for sure. And that's the same thing with every marketing, right? Pay-per-click, anything you do in this business, if you treat it like its own arm of the business, it ends up doing a lot better.
Yeah, I like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
You use for cold calling, or use call tools with dialers? Or you guys using?
So in our call center, we use ZenCall, so it's ready mode now. I think
Gotcha.
they changed their name to ready mode. And then in-house, we do a mix. So we use some call tools in-house just because it has some integrations that ZenCall doesn't, for some smaller stuff, some more targeted stuff. But for the bulk of it, we're still on ZenCall in-house as well. It's the easiest to use, simplest. You don't really
use them a while ago.
What was that?
ZenCall, we used to use them a while ago, like when I first started, like 2018. Carlos and Sal were blasting
Yeah.
all-in dialer.
All-in dialer, baby.
That's right.
$90 a seat. I like ZenCall.
What'd you do for texting, Cole? You said that, what software did you use?
So we've tried them all. Again, all of them have gone to 10 DLC. So if you guys listening haven't read up on what 10 DLC is, it essentially makes you add an opt-in message, as well as some other, you have to have a company name in your text, a few other things to get it through the carrier. So we've always used Roar, because Roar has some cool API integrations into our CRM, as well as stuff we built out that funnel. But it's gotten complicated because even them, as of this week, they've integrated last week, 10 DLC. So I'm not high on texting over the next 6-12 months, personally. I mean, we still do it, but I don't think it's going to be a significant portion of our revenue. But in 2020, texting was like 70% of our revenue.
Yeah, I think they definitely are compressing a little bit, like Launch Control is who we use. I was talking to our marketing director today, and she was like saying that they doubled the cost of, like, basically to send a text, and now it costs twice as much. Response rate's a little bit lower. Like, I think it's normally like 12, and now it's like 9.5. So I think they're kind of compressing a little bit. Yeah, which my thought is like probably
like SMS is 16x return for us this year off like 50K spend.
That's beautiful. Doesn't get better than that. And I think it does. I think SMS does crush it. Like, and a lot of market, like, it's Atlanta's, it's not a low price point market, but it's a lot lower than Seattle and LA and San Diego. So it's like I found, because we do texting for clients in our call center. Texting works great if you're not in a coastal market where the price points are lower. For I don't know what reason. Cold calling works better too that way. Cost per leads, lower cost per contracts, lower cost per deals, lower.
Some of it's like the competition too. Like, usually like it makes up for on the deal size. Like, we have a client in California, and like his deal size is, like 35 grand.
Yeah, but it's 36,500.
Yeah,
it's nuts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a no-brainer to spend, $5,000 versus 2,500 for a deal, or whatever it is. Yeah. But my thought with texting is like it would probably compress to be similar cost per contract or cost per deal as like cold calling is.
Yeah, because what's our cost per deal, Chandler? Since you
dude, it was like $1,800, I think, cost per deal.
That's amazing.
Something like
that. So even if it doubles 3,600, we're still, what's our average deal size? 30 something.
It's like TV, like we do TV ads, and it's like 7,500, $8,000, or actually no, cost per deal is probably like 9 or 10 grand.
Yeah, the cost per contract is 7.
Yeah,
TV is expensive. Yeah, I think SMS it'll be a little less return than cold calling, just because there's a lot more regulation going. And texting is very invasive for people. So all the rules that are passing in all the courts for all the cell carriers, they're very aggressive on text marketing. Cold calling, there's not a ton more they can do. And what's happened with cold calling is they input all this spam filtering, and people thought it was going to hurt cold call contact rates, but they've gone up. And the reason why is because now people are getting spam calls and they answer, and it's their doctor, or it's their lawyer, or it's someone important because they're spamming everyone.
Mhm.
So now actually you're starting to see across our call center, spam calls are being answered almost more often than non-spam calls. And so our
Damn, I
contact
didn't know
rates
that.
actually started to go up. So it's kind of done the opposite of what the carriers thought it was going to do.
That's
Because
kind of
I
fun.
had it happen to me yesterday. We have a puppy and he just started doggy day camp, and they called me and it said spam likely, and I answer and it's them. So you have to answer spam calls.
Yeah.